Shadow Slave. By Guiltythree. Chapter 1247, Fear Itself. The Dark Shaper was a transcendent memory of the fourth tier that Nephis had gained in Antarctica. It was one of the few she had chosen to keep, the rest either went to the Fire Keepers or were sold to acquire various equipment and resources. Being the leader of a group of elite awakened was not cheap. Even with the support of clan valor, Neph had to work hard to provide her followers with the best. Everything. Perhaps it was a part of the King of Swords testing her competency, or perhaps the great clan simply didn't care to spend too much on the survivors of the Forgotten Shore before they proved themselves. In any case, Nephis had decided to keep the Dark Shaper for herself. The reason she had decided to hold on to the stone mallet was both because of its power and because its description mentioned the Demon of Dread. The Dark Shaper looked more like a tool than a weapon. It had a handle of dark polished wood inlaid with dull silver. The hammerhead was fashioned out of perfectly black stone, which looked and felt rather familiar. Sunny was almost certain that it was the same stone that the tomb of Ariel had been built of. The stone mallet's enchantments had to do with sculpting and changing the shape of things. Disturbingly, these things were not limited to stone, metal, and wood. If one wished, they could also shape flesh and bone, sculpting all kinds of nightmarish creations. The sinister corrupted devil Nephis had killed to receive the Dark Shaper was similarly revolting. It was indeed a memory worthy of being graced with the name of the Demon of Dread in its description. And speaking of the description. At first, Sunny simply studied the shimmering runes, finding them rather interesting. They read, Memory, Dark Shaper. Memory rank, Transcendent. Memory tier, 4. Memory type, Tool. Memory description, when the unholy titan took a step, everyone cowered in fear. Only Ariel, the Demon of Dread, remained standing. He did not feel fear, for he was fear itself. Taking a step forward, he challenged the unholy titan, and the two battled under the azure sky. Their battle was fierce, their battle was fearsome. Their battle was a hint of the doom that would come. The unholy titan possessed an indestructible stone body and was invulnerable to all harm. As they fought, the land was shattered and the sky split apart. The Demon of Dread received many harrowing wounds, but the terrible titan remained wholly unscathed. Its stone body became incandescent from the heat, shining brighter than the fiery sun. That was when the Demon of Dread whispered something to his enemy, and then cast the titan into the depths of the ocean. When the incandescent titan plunged into the cool water, the ocean turned into searing vapor and was scattered by the winds. The stone flesh of the titan instantly cooled, causing a tiny crack to appear on its heart. That tiny spot was the only part of the creature that had not been tempered, and was also its only flaw. As Ariel watched coldly, the titan bellowed in agony. After one heartbeat, cracks appeared on its indestructible body. After 2 heartbeats, blood flowed from its wounds like a river. After 3 heartbeats, its body started to crumble into numerous shards. And on the 7th heartbeat, its heart shattered, turning into dust. That was how the unholy stone titan was destroyed. Following the end of the battle, the Demon of Dread created a mystical river out of the titan's blood, and built a pyramid out of its stone flesh. The pyramid stood where the ocean had once been, and the description ended. It was after he finished reading that Sunny's eyes widened as an unbelievable guess appeared in his mind. Wait. No. No way. The tale of Ariel's battle with an unholy titan was indeed very interesting, not the least because it seemed as though the Demon of Dread had won due to a single whisper. More than that, it hinted at the answers to several questions that Sunny had been curious about. For example, who or what was the progenitor of the minor shard of the stone titan, Goliath? Or how the Nightmare Desert had come into existence. But these precious pieces of knowledge were not what caused such a reaction from Sunny. What drew his attention was the abrupt end of the description. Didn't it seem incomplete, and in as if there was another part of it missing? Coincidentally, he knew of another description that seemed like a fragment of a larger whole. Frowning, Sunny summoned his own runes and found the name of the stifled scream. Concentrating on it, he read, Memory description, a great river was contained within it, flowing endlessly from the future into the past. When doom came, many entered to seek shelter from it, and many had come to seek the truth. That was because the great river existed outside time, and so, it was said that a dreadful secret was hidden at its estuary. Few of those capable dared to approach it, and none of those who had returned. He remained motionless for a few moments, then mentally put the two descriptions together. Following the end of the battle, the Demon of Dread created a mystical river out of the Titan's blood, and built a pyramid out of its stone flesh. The pyramid stood where the ocean had once been. A great river was contained within it, flowing endlessly from the future into the past. His hands trembled. Unable to speak, Sunny turned his head slightly and stared at Nephi's. A few moments later, she noticed his gaze and raised an eyebrow. What? He lingered for a while, and then said hesitantly, that. I am really not sure. But I think I understand where we are now. Then, Sunny looked at the narrow strip of the sky above them and added in a hushed voice, Neph, this might sound crazy, but I think that we are inside the Black Pyramid. Chapter 1248, Entombed. The two of them climbed from the fissure and stood gazing at the seven suns moving across the vast sky. They remained silent for a while. Eventually, Sunny spoke, his voice carrying a sense of wonder and perplexity. I know that it doesn't make sense. But it also makes so much sense, you know. Nephi's frowned, her thoughts mirroring his. She had read both descriptions, and although Sunny's theory sounded outlandish, it was also compelling in a bizarre and irrational way. He took a deep breath and continued to unravel his theory. I mean, listen. We were in the Nightmare Desert, and entered the third nightmare through a seed that had been a part of Ariel's tomb once. Logically, the spell should have sent us into the past of the desert, or at least into the past of the Black Pyramid. However, it sent us into the Great River instead. That is an obvious contradiction. Sunny brushed his hair back and rubbed his eyes, attempting to make sense of the puzzle. But it all makes sense if the Great River is actually situated inside the pyramid. Sure, no matter how large the pyramid is, it can't be large enough to contain an entire region of the dream realm, an entire world, even. That is if we think about it from the perspective of human logic. However, Ariel was not a human. He was a daemon, an actual deity. Beings like that are not bound by mundane logic. If he could create a pyramid that does not draw nearer no matter how long you walk toward it, who says that he couldn't create a pyramid that contains a whole world inside it? Nephi's considered the implications of Sunny's words. Her eyes remained fixed on the vast great river, and the azure serpent lurking beneath its surface, with madness and hunger in its gaze. And struggling to ignore the unsettling presence of the serpent, she sighed and voiced her own insights. Did he create that world too, then? Well, now that I think about it, he might have. Both of us thought that this place looked like a soul sea, right? Maybe it is not a soul sea, but instead was made from one. Ariel built the Black Pyramid out of the flesh of an unholy titan. He created the great river out of its blood. Then, he created a world out of its soul. If so, then those seven suns were made out of seven divine soul shards that the titan had left behind. Nephi's paused for a moment and then added, her voice tinged with a sense of awe. If the humans of the Forgotten Shore could create an artificial sun, there's really no reason why Ariel couldn't create seven better ones. Sunny acknowledged her insights with a nod. It would also explain why there are no stars in the night sky, and why it's entirely black. Because it is not a real sky. Instead, the Black Pyramid is hollow, and what we're looking at is actually the inner side of its walls. The two of them exchanged glances, growing more convinced that their startling theory was right. Troubled, Nephi's looked at the seven suns again and expressed her concerns. So, Ariel created this place. This tomb. To bury the truths he couldn't endure. And there is said to be a dreadful secret hidden in its estuary. It is easy to conclude that the truth he buried and the dreadful secret are one and the same. However, isn't it a little bit too elaborate of a feat to create a whole world, hide it within an indestructible pyramid, and remove it from the natural flow of time, all just to hide a secret? Why would he want to go to all that trouble? Sunny listened to her with a somber expression on his face. He remained silent for a bit, then speculated about Ariel's motives. Maybe it's not that he wanted to, but instead that he had no other choice. The truth is hidden in the estuary of the Great River, and the Great River flows from the future into the past. But what is its estuary, actually? What can be the end of a river that flows through time, into the past? Sunny paused, deep in thought, and then arrived at a peculiar conclusion. The only end such a river can have is the point. When time didn't exist yet. Isn't it? Where the past terminates. The estuary of the great river has to be the point where the past disappears into the primordial void, which was everlasting and ever-changing, and existed before the concepts like death and time were even created by the gods. In fact, the estuary has to exist before the gods were born. And, therefore, outside their control. If Ariel wanted to hide something from even the gods, wouldn't he have had to go to such lengths? Nephi sighed, then rubbed her face, grappling with the paradoxical nature of these revelations. This is a little bit too strange to think about. A time before time existed. That is a paradox in and of itself, don't you think? Also, the great river does not only flow from the future into the past, it also does so endlessly. How can an endless river reach a point of termination? Sonny felt a headache coming on, and he grimaced as he looked away. Well, anyway. Regardless of all that. At least we know now that the Sibyls did not literally hide inside a huge pyramid with their people. They actually came to the great river, which existed outside the natural flow of time, and was thus far removed from the doom that they were escaping. That doom. It had to be the war between the demons and the gods, right? That was why they eventually couldn't hear the voices of the gods anymore. Because the gods died. Nephi slowly nodded, prompting Sonny to smile with an air of revelation. You do understand what it means, don't you? She looked at him with a hint of curiosity. What exactly are you talking about? He grinned with a sense of anticipation. It means that there are tons of locals here on the Great River. We just haven't found them yet. But when we do, we'll be able to learn all kinds of information from them, including what the central conflict of this nightmare is, and how to conquer it. She tilted her head a little, intrigued by his optimism. Right. There have to be plenty of humans here, according to the descriptions of the memories. It's just that they had entered the Great River much, much earlier than we did. So, they are probably somewhere further downstream. Further into the past. Without having to say anything, both of them turned to look north, in the direction where the waters of the Great River were flowing. The view was rather beautiful, except for the terrifying silhouette of the ancient serpent, which had raised its neck from the water and was devouring them with its eyes. Nephi's lingered for a while, and then said in a low voice, a tinge of worry in her tone, "But, Sonny, what if the goal of this nightmare is to reach the estuary? What are we going to do then?" He shivered, startled by her question. The idea of reaching the end of the great river was both daunting and overwhelming. Surely, a third nightmare would not have such an insane goal. That was not a task for mere ascended. There had to be something else, something more attainable, something they could accomplish. He just didn't know what it was. Sonny let out a stifled laugh. Let's hope that it's not. And if it is, well, I guess we'll have to do our best. The Sin of Solace smirked as he looked at the water, the mysteries of the great river and the tomb of Ariel unfolding before them, as they journeyed deeper into the enigmatic third nightmare.